Hello, this is Required Fields, and in this video I'm going to be discussing some of my favorite metal releases of 2020. Now, 2020 was a very chaotic year, obviously, due to the pandemic, but it did bring us some great releases, and I'm going to be discussing some of those in this video today. And anyways, let's get started. Here is my top 10 of 2020. Heaven, Empire of the Blind. I had to mention this album. It's a great release from the Bay Area thrash heroes, and this is their fourth release, and they really hit the park once again. My favorite tracks on it would probably be The Blight, the title track, and Sun by Hand. But there's no bad tracks in this album, I'd say. It's a bit different from the previous releases in the sense that it's actually the least fast of the releases, and also there's actually no epic tracks in terms of the song lengths. The longest track here is just under 6 minutes, and which is very different from them, as they usually have a lot of tracks that exceed the 6 minute mark. Anyways, another great album from Heaven, Empire of the Blind. Good melodic, great melodic thrash. Definitely get that in the album if you haven't got it already. And this is a split release with Exhumed and Gruesome called Twisted Horror. And it has 3 tracks by Exhumed, Rot Your Brain, Buried to Die, and Dead, Dead or Deadest. And 2 tracks by Gruesome, A Mind Decayed and Led Into the Dark. The Exhumed tracks, I think I like the third one, Dead, Dead or Deadest the best. And the Gruesome tracks are both awesome and about equal, I would say. Whereas Gruesome, on their last full-length release, Twisted Horror, not Twisted Horror, but Twisted Prayers. Twisted Horror is the name of the split. Anyways, Twisted Prayers seems to have more of a sound comparable to Spiritual Healing Era Death, whereas the tracks on Twisted Horror sound a little bit closer to what they were doing before Twisted Prayers, which is closer to the earlier to the 80s era of Death. So I wonder if maybe the 2 tracks of this were leftovers that they never made the album to the but that weren't actually recorded until now. Or might have been written back then, but they're never recorded until now. So I'm not sure, but either way, they're both great tracks, and it's good to have some new material there from Gruesome. But yes, this is Gruesome and Exhumed with their split release, Twisted Horror. This is Haunt, and this is their release, Flashback. Haunt is a great band in a NWO/BHM style. Anyways, if so somebody who for somebody who is into the NWO/BHM style sound that wants a new band that kind of that kind of pays a bit of a tribute to that type of sound, this is a band that should definitely be checked out. They also put out a release, Mind Freeze, at the start of the year. That was a good release, but this one was even better, I thought. My favorite tracks out would be Electrified and The Great Beyond. But yes, this is a very good release from a Haunt called Flashback. Definitely get the album if you haven't yet. And this is Schizophrenia, and this is their debut EP, Voices. Now, I discussed this band in one of my What's Been Spinning videos last year, and this is an EP that should definitely be checked out by people who like the more brutal side of thrash metal. I'm going to assume that the band gets their name from the Sepultura album, Schizophrenia. They'd be a comparison point, but an even better one would be Demolition Hammer. I can hear a lot of them in terms of their sound in this release. But yes, Schizophrenia's debut EP, Voices. Definitely get this EP if you're into the more extreme side of thrash metal, and I'm really looking forward to hearing what they do in their full-length release. This is Benediction. This is Scripture. Now, Benediction is a death metal band that formed over 30 years ago, and they released their debut release in 1990. This is their first release in over a decade, and it's in the vein of their older material. So if you like their older releases, you should like this one too. And anyways, Benediction of Scriptures, very strong death metal release. and another one of my favorites of 2020. And this is Hemotoxin, and this is their release, Restructure the Molded Mind. Now, they've been working on this release for a few years, actually, but it didn't see the light of day until 2020, and I remember mentioning it back in, I think as far back as maybe even 2018, I remember discussing that they were working on a new release, but it didn't come out until 2020. But either way, it's a very strong progressive technical death metal release. My favorite track on it is probably Corrupted Flesh. But yes, this is another album that I really liked that came out in 2020. Hemotoxin, Restructure the Molded Mind. This is Shock Paris, and this is their first release in over 30 years, titled Full Metal Jacket. Now, Shock Paris are a traditional metal band who actually released their debut album, Go for the Throat, all the way back in 1984. Then they released Steel and Starlight in 1987 and Concrete Killers in 1989 before disbanding. And then they reformed in the 21st century and had some material that they had been working on for years, but they didn't finally drop their full-length release until 2020 when they put out Full Metal Jacket. It's definitely comparable to what they had been doing before. You still recognize it as them. My favorite track on here. I don't really. I'd say the Nature of the Beast is one of the highlights of the album, as well as Black Boots. And what I find really, and Symphony of Sea as well. Another thing is the CD release contains the song "Up to Hammers" as a bonus track, not available on the vinyl release of the album. That's actually one of the best songs of the album because there's definitely a few tracks on here that track is superior to. I suppose it wasn't included on the vinyl because it's the longest track of the album, and it's over 7 minutes. But either way, it shouldn't have been excluded from it because it is one of the best tracks on it. But yes, Shock Paris, Full Metal Jacket, very strong traditional metal release. This is Morta Skuld, and this is the release Suffer for Nothing. Morta Skuld is a death metal band from Milwaukee who formed back in 1990. Their debut album, Dire Remains, came out in 1993, and they released a few more albums in the 90s before disbanding, and then in the 2010s they actually reformed and they actually released an EP, and another full-length release, and then called Wounds Deeper Than Time. Anyways, their EP was called Serving Two Masters. I was just trying to remember the title of the EP. But Suffer for Nothing is an old school death metal release. It's very much in the vein of the old school death metal. If you like that type of style, definitely check out this release. Suffer for Nothing by Morta Skuld. And here's a split, another split. It's only been officially released on cassette in terms of physical format. It has no physical CD release yet, as far as I'm aware. It is by Deferus and Stench of Death, two Canadian metal bands. And anyways, Deferus Deferus is a death thrash band. And they have two original tracks, and there's also a cover track on it, a cover of Sepultura's Troops of Doom. And Stench of Death are the second side of the release, of two of their original songs, and a cover of the Autopsy song, Twisted Mass of Burnt Decay. And because of the fact that Deferus and Stench of Death on it, they call it really Stench of Death, but whereas Stench of Death spelled their name D-E-A-T-H, they called the split Stench of Death D-E-T-H. Probably a bit of a play on words there with the band names and stuff. But anyways, this is another release that I really dug that came out in 2020. And finishing off here is Skeletal Remains, The Entombment of Chaos. still remains are part of the batch of bands that I refer to as new old school death metal. In fact, the band released their first album in the 2010s, but they have very much of a sound that's in the vein of the not traditional metal, but traditional death metal, but earlier death metal, old school death metal, the early 1990s. You hear a lot of the Florida death metal sound and Benediction. I know Benediction's from England, but they actually very much sound very similar to what was going on in the Florida death metal scene at the time. But this is their fourth release, The Entombment of Chaos, and that was another release that I really enjoyed that came out in 2020. And some honorable mentions, I would say, go to Madras with their release Charring the Rotting Earth, Glacier, The Passing of Time, and Hans release Mind Freeze, which I mentioned earlier. Flashback made the top 10 of the year, and I'd like to give an honorable mention to Mind Freeze as well. But anyways, thank you very much for watching the video, and hopefully 2021 is a great year for metal as well. Hellstar puts out a release which is considered to be an EP by the band, but a compilation according to Metal Archives, because they're including their previous release, Vampiro, is attached to it basically, or packaged a lot of it, but has 6 new tracks, 3 covers, and 3 originals on one disc, and the Vampiro disc on the next. The band considers it an EP, but Metal Archives calls it, Encyclopedia Metallica Metal Archives calls it a compilation disc. But regardless, I have that one pre-ordered, and looking forward to getting that one. And also new releases are coming out from Exodus, Sacrifice, and hopefully Dark Angel will have a new album out too. And hopefully Gruesome has a new one out as well. But anyways, thank you very much for watching this video, and since I had Headshot Paris video, I'd like to wish Vic Hicks a happy birthday. Thank you very much for watching this video. This is Required Field signing off, and goodbye.